Let's give area of a circle a spin. During the next few slides, please feel free to pause your video and write down any information you feel necessary. Let's get started. The first couple of slides is going to be some background information just showing us how we get the area of a circle. As we can see, we've got a circle cut in half, shaded both red and blue. The circumference of half the circle, which is in purple, can be found by taking the circumference, or 2 pi r, of a circle and then taking half of it. We notice that if we take our circle, it's cut into 8 pieces, and we take those 8 pieces and we rearrange them, we have a new shape. This new shape is called a parallelogram. In our parallelogram, the half circumference of our circle, or the 1/2, 2 pi r, becomes the base of the parallelogram. The radius of my circle becomes the height of my parallelogram. Seeing this information, we can connect the two parts together. There is a relationship between the area of a circle and the area of a parallelogram. The area of a parallelogram would be base times height. So the base of my parallelogram, remember, came from the circumference divided by 2 of my circle. The height of my parallelogram, which is here, was the height of the radius of my circle. So knowing that, I can replace the b, or base of my parallelogram, with 1/2 2 pi r, or half the circumference of a circle. The height of my parallelogram comes from the radius of the circle, so I can put an r right there. Anytime that I have half of 2, it's just 1. So 1 times a number just gives me that number. So we simplify the 1/2 2 to a 1, and we're left with pi times r times r. We learned with exponents that a number times itself can be raised to a power, so r times r becomes r squared, and that is how we get from the area of a circle to a parallelogram, and where our formula generates from. So in summary, area of a parallelogram, if we replace parts of a circle, once they've been rearranged for a parallelogram, we can go from the area of a parallelogram to the area of a circle. Keep in mind that r squared means r times r, and you must do that before you multiply by pi. Let's go through some examples. Read your problem and work it, then check it with me. So as we read through our problem, we see that a gymnastics practice has a large circular parachute used for team building exercise. The parachute has a radius of 10 feet. How many square feet does the parachute cover when the students stretch it out? We want to start off identifying the question that's being asked and the things that we know. We want to know the area, so that is our question. We know the radius is 10. We know that our formula for area is pi r squared. We're going to use 3.14 for pi, since 10 is not divisible by 7. If our radius is divisible by 7, then we would want to use 22 over 7. I'm going to use my formula. I'm going to replace my radius with the 10. I'm going to square my radius, and then I will multiply it by pi, giving me an area of 314 feet squared. An analog clock has a face with a diameter of 14 inches. What is the area of the clock? The question is asking for the area. I know the diameter is 14. That means the radius is 7. Area equals pi r squared is the formula I use. This time we're going to use 22 over 7 for pi, since my radius of 7 is divisible by 7. I'm going to write down my formula. I'm going to replace pi with 22 over 7 and the radius with 7. 7 squared is 49. I have a denominator of 7 and I have a numerator of 49. Both of those numbers can be divided by 7. 7 divided by 7 leaves me with a 1. 49 divided by 7 leaves me with 7. Now that I've simplified, I'm left with 22 times 7, which is the whole number 154. We don't have to worry about multiplying with decimals, moving over my decimal, or worry about counting. So in this problem, since my radius was 7, it was best to use 22 over 7 to help us simplify. A gardener's digging a circular flower garden that has an area of 78.5 feet squared. What is the length of its diameter? The question asks us to find the diameter of the circle. We know the area. We know the area formula. And we're going to use 3.14 for pi since the area has a decimal. I have my formula. I replace it with my numbers. The opposite of multiplying by 3.14 means I divide by 3.14. When I divide 78.5 by 3.14, I get 25. 25 is equal to the r squared. So I have to ask myself, what number times itself is 25? That number is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25. I have not answered my question yet. My question, when I go back to the box, asks me for the diameter. If the radius is 5, then that means the diameter is 10. Please feel free to bring all your questions to class or re-watch your video and pause as needed.